Hey, and welcome back to Rapid Flow. My name's Eric, I'm the founder, I'm a sound engineer, and in this video I'm going to share with you everything I know about how you can self-master your tracks, either using just Ableton stock plugins, but also with a few third-party plugins that I can recommend to you, which will just add that extra bit of flair and mojo. So come with me, come check this out, and I'll give you an overview of what we have going on here. And also, first of all, huge thank you to everyone that subscribed to the channel last week. I uploaded a similar video about mixing kick and bass, and it took off insanely. It's like almost 10K views in a week. So let's dive into something similar, but now around mastering. Okay, so what do we have going on here? And just for you to be able to better get your bearings, let me take you through how this is routed, because like these are all the tracks that make up this progression, or this track in progress. But the one thing you should know is that I send everything first to these super channels, which are in essence DJ live performance effects. But from there they go to this mastering channel, and that's a very essential part of my workflow. I am not a proponent of mixing everything on a completely empty bus and then bouncing it and then putting it in a mastering session and then hoping that when you dump a ton of mastering processing on it, it's still going to sound good, because things can shift a lot in the mastering process. Just the fact of adding 1 or 2 limiters in a clipper can change things a lot. So I produce into a mastering chain. That is a very personal choice, but it has the huge advantage that when you do it that way, you can actually also compare your track in production against ready masters without having to change the levels, because your track is going to sound like a finished master. So let me give you first of all a quick demo of where we're going to get to with each of these workflows, meaning with the Ableton stock plugins only, and then also with the third-party plugins thrown in for good measure. We're going to be using adapter AB to compare these tracks, and I'm going to grab one of my tracks so I don't get a copyright strike. I'm able to switch between these two tracks using the crossfader on my desk. Okay, so let's have a listen to where we want to get to. This is a track of mine that has been mastered by Earthbound Mastering, and let's have a listen to what the target is here, what the goal is. Okay, cool. So let's go now to the track in production, and let's see how close we can get it to that master using only stock plugins. And what I'm going to show you first is the Earthbound Mid Side mastering chain. But yeah, follow along here and you can build something very similar to this yourself. So the first thing we have going on here is the way that this is set up is using actually just macro controls, which is actually a game changer that I can highly recommend, meaning that you can do a lot of your basic processing using these 8 macro controls. If you build your own mastering chain, I would highly recommend it, because it speeds the process up massively with not having to switch around. So the first thing that I always like to do is check that my compressors are not pumping too much, which they definitely are now. I only want to see these dancing just a little bit to the music. So I'm going to lower the level a little bit going into the first compressor, and I'm actually going to loop a part of the track that has a kick drum going. Let's see if I found the spot with a kick. Yes, here we go. Okay, so that's still a little bit more than I want to see those moving. I added some gain here so that we can listen to it before and after at similar levels. So let's check. That looks solid to me. Now, we're not actually using the pop compressor. I'm going to switch it off. We're only using this. This is what tells me if it's too loud or not going into the mastering bus. So then the next thing I would do is start softly EQing this. And one of the really nice things which our mastering engineer Daniel did here is that he set this up to be a mid-side mastering EQ. So as you can see, there's different settings going on for the mid and the side, meaning that the side is actually getting boosted a bit more when I do this. And that will lead to a wider sounding master, because the stereo parts of your signal are getting pushed further out. So I'm going to take that back a little bit. I don't want to overdo it on the high frequencies. This is again a macro that is controlling different topics in the mono set part, the mid side of the signal only. And what this is doing is it's carving out a space for the kick, punch and bass to really come through cleanly. And the body control again is doing some of Daniel's crazy magic in mid-side. Let me show you a bit so you can get an idea of it. And it's basically tearing apart the mid and the side in a different way. It's actually giving a bit more width to the sort of 200 Hertz area, which is something that, yeah, that he set up and that I've come to realize is just really, really cool. So let's do an A-B comparison. Cool, so we've got some basic EQing going on now. What I would like to do now is, I'm just going to close this so we can have a better overview of what's going on. I'm going to bring in this tube saturation a little bit. That's enough. I can already tell like that's starting to give it a nice contour. Cool. And the OTT is mostly being used as a sort of multiband EQ. It's just opening up the highs a bit. Let me show you, the mids and the highs. Got very clean filters in it, so to push the mids and the highs forward a bit, it's really great. Here's the bus comp doing exactly what it should be doing. That's what I like to see. It's also balanced. Let's bypass that for a sec. Just giving it a little bit of shove when the kick hits. And this is a very important part of self-mastering, is to clip your signals before you hit the limiters, because it'll shave off the tops of your most transient intensive sounds like the kick drums, the toms and the snares, meaning your limiters will have to work much less and they won't be chopping holes all over your track trying to maintain the levels. While I'm doing this, I'm starting to peek over now at my spectrum analyzer because I'm used to reading this. This is the flux analyzer, and I can tell from the fall off of this curve that this is absolutely already in the ballpark frequency-wise, but we're still missing some level. Stereo width-wise also, this is starting to look good. I'm not going to cut this to vinyl, so I don't care that the super deep bass stuff is stereo. It's also something I learned from Daniel, is that doesn't really matter if you're printing this to a digital medium. It can actually sound very cool also and be a part of the track, and I have to agree with him. So the clipper, let's remove it and keep your eye, well actually in order for us to see really what the clipper is doing, I need to bring up the limiters a bit. And this is another incredible trick that I can show you, which is using 2 limiters in a row rather than just one to get your track loud. First limiter is just to control peaks, and the second limiter is to really get the highest gain that you can get. I'm going to unlink them in the stereo field because techno, house, all this kind of music has such a strong centering force with the kick drums that even if they're not linked, they're going to be balanced, but unlinking them leaves your track a bit more space to be wide in places where there is no kick drum, and it'll make your stereo field feel a little bit less compressed. So like left, right wise, things will come together if you have this fully linked. Okay, now this is where I think it gets really interesting. Let's start to add the limiter, and let me show you how I set this up. The first limiter is just going to be doing 1 or 2 dB. That's what I want to see there. Let me now bring up this master to its final level. And now I can show you very well what happens with these limiters if I remove the clipper. Just see how much more they have to work, and also how weird the music starts to sound. Check this out. Can you tell the dynamic fluctuations every time the kick hits? Now let me bring back the clipper. So it's just making sure that not too much crazy stuff is hitting the limiters, which allows them to work much more cleanly. And actually clipping the tops of waveforms, if you do it right, is almost inaudible and sounds much cleaner than hard limiting stuff. Cool, so now we have what could be the first version of this master. Let's go back to our reference workflow. So what we just saw is that level-wise it could still be a little bit louder. So I'm going to boost the level a little bit more, and actually we can grab a little bit more level off the first limiter. So let's do this here. And I do also feel this track needs a little bit more mids and highs, so let's bring those in. And I'm going to reduce the bass boost a little bit, just to make it a little bit less fat and get it a little bit louder. So the track in production is still a little bit less loud, and I can tell it's a little bit over the top in the low end. And this is the beauty of mixing through a mastering chain while you still have your whole project open. I'm going to actually now drop down my bass by 1.5 dB, and I'm going to do exactly the same with the kick. I'm just going to grab one of the utilities that I have inserted all over the place, and I'm just going to actually remove a little bit of the low end level to get this a bit louder and a bit more mids and highs forward by actually reducing the low end. That already sounds so much better. So that to me now is sounding really good, and I don't want to pretend to compete with, like, you know, 100 or it's probably more like 200K mastering studio that was mastered all with analog. Like, I could get this a little bit louder, but right now this sounds really good to me, and I prefer to have a little bit more dynamics than squishing stuff to the point where it doesn't sound good. So we could still aim for a little bit more level if you absolutely want to hit -8 or -7 dB. Let's try that now just to get this a little bit louder. So as you can see, we're getting in the -8 territory now. And now for me, I would consider this as a master, just something I'm doing quickly on a demo now. I would consider this done. The only thing I'm thinking about, it could maybe use a little bit more high frequencies. I would potentially maybe boost a little bit of the percussions, etc. But in order to keep this video within a reasonable length, let's move over now to mastering with a mastering chain that also includes third-party plugins. But I think what I was able to really nicely show you now is that if you're mixing and producing into a mastering chain that you trust and that you have detailed control over, if you realize while you're mastering you're having trouble, for example, hitting a loudness target that you're going after, usually that's too much low end. So in this case, I was able to just pull down the low end going into the mastering chain so that everything downstream can actually get louder. And that's not something you can do if your mixing and mastering processes are completely separate. Most of us self-master a lot of stuff anyway, so having that all in one project makes a lot of sense. Of course, if you're always sending stuff off to a mastering engineer, that may not be necessary, especially if you have your monitoring and everything super dialed in, but I find it super useful to really know where I am with my mixes. Okay, let's do the same now, but instead of using the earthbound mastering chain, the mid-side mastering chain, which if you don't want to build all this, you can grab this over on rapidflow.shop. It's probably the best investment you'll make into your music this year because of how ridiculously good it sounds and how easy it is to master your tracks with this. It's not only available for Ableton, but also Bitwig, FL Studio, and Logic Pro. Okay, we're gonna now move to my personal mastering chain, which as you can see is also based on the earthbound mastering chain, but I added a lot of stuff to it. So it's gonna look similar in some places, and I'm gonna show you first now where we're gonna get to with this by actually cutting away this utility that I was using there. And I just wanna show you where this chain is gonna take this track. And this is a function that I find extremely useful in Adapter AB, where you can see sort of the fall off and how things are working against your reference track. So I can see actually I still have a little bit of extra bass build up here. I could clean up the low end of this track a little bit more, but overall it's very much in the ballpark for where I want to get to with how the frequencies are falling off. And as you could hear, this mastering chain is a bit more mid-forward, and I'm going to show you why that is now. Let's first fix this low end topic here. For this, I have something really nicely set up in my template. This is the Eric Harriman template, but you can use this with any EQ. I have a rotary encoder that will cut away from the fundamental of sort of most kicks. This is a little bit below it, so I'm going to move it up to the fundamental of the kick, and I'm going to remove a bit of that, and I'm going to bring in the low cut filter, but not on such a steep Q. I'm not a big fan actually of using it that steeply. I think 12 sounds the best, and I'm going to remove this down a little bit, and I'm going to use this a bit more flat. So let's see if we can clean up that mess on the low end a bit. That's already looking better. However, we also have some of that coming off of the bass, and I have a very similar workflow there. You'll again find an equilibrium. I also have in my template places where I do this using the FAB filter. We're going to do exactly the same thing, which is just low cut a little bit of the bass, and we're going to use this low cut that I have on a dedicated controller over here on my desk. And we're going to use that to grab the fundamental of this bass line and pull it down a little bit. So I'm going to move this down. This is actually a very deep bass. I'm going to grab this, pull this a bit, and I'm going to pull that a bit. Okay, let's have a listen again. I'm going to look for a spot in the reference track that is consistently playing bass. Okay, cool. Let's reference again. Cool. So as you can see now, this is much cleaner in the low end, and this is a big deal. This is something I can show you that is actually one of the most useful things of this view. If you have too much buildup down in this super deep bass region, it's gonna cause especially smaller or battery powered speakers, or like generally it's not a good idea. If you listen to a lot of the other reference tracks I have in here, which I don't want to do, is that I don't want to get any copyright strikes, etc. But very few of them, with the exception of Mr. Stefan Bodsin, have a lot of content all the way down here. Everything else you would see, it's very clean down here. And I've just done the same with this track now, which is going to help me get this actually louder. So let's check where we are with the rest of the frequency stuff. I mean, these are super close now. Okay, cool. So let's go into the mastering chain and let me actually show you really what's happening there and what I've done to enhance the mid-side mastering chain with some third-party plugins. So first of all, there's just a utility here. I just use that again to make sure that my bus comp is not pumping too much, just a little bit. I want a little bit of movement when the kick hits, but not too much. So let me show you what these things sound like. I'm going to bypass them individually. Loses so much density and movement, right? Let's check it out again. Yeah, the Cytomic guys did something incredible with this little compressor. It's really good. Okay, going to the EQ now. As you can see, it's the mid-side mastering EQ. It just has a little curve that's basically doing the cool Daniel Earthbound magic in the low end and this trick here in the low mids and then boosting the highs a little bit. Let's check. Cool, let's check out this dynamic tube. It's actually on dry. I'm not using it in this track. I haven't really, is it? Let me check. No, I'm actually not using this here. What do we have here? Again, it's the OTT, which is actually acting more like an EQ than a multiband compressor. Let me show you what it does. And this is something that I've realized through the years now of making music. For some reason, you always need to add a ton of mids and highs to almost any sound that you want to sit properly in a mix. Like that's what, like, you know, Optimods, what do you call these things that used to make stuff on the radio sound ridiculously loud? They would just add a ton of mid and highs. Like that's the radio sound. That's what our ears have gotten used to over the last 5-6 decades. So in many cases, most of your tracks will need mids and highs to sit properly up front and feel present and like they're coming out of the speakers. And most of the instruments, when you record them, they don't have that. They're kind of more subdued, which is cool because you can bring them in any direction. But I got tired of adding EQs to individual channels, so I said, why don't I just do that on the master output on the mix bus? And started out with the OTT and with EQs and ended up on this where it just sounds really upfront without having to do much. And because of that, I don't have to do much mids and highs boosting on the actual individual channels. So this is something I can highly recommend. All of this is part of the Eric Heiermann template, which is what I'm showing you now. So yeah, if you want to get exactly this mastering chain and this workflow with the third-party plugins, it's the Eric Heiermann template. Unfortunately, that's Ableton only because that's what I use. Okay, moving along in this track. Clipper, again, sparing my limiters so that they can just limit cleanly. And in this case, I actually have a Goldclip on here also, so we don't even need this clipper here. This is something Goldclip should be doing. So it seems like this is doing very little. I can grab this a little bit more maybe. Oh no. Cool. I mean, this is a very insanely expensive plugin. It's really good, but you can do this with like almost any clipper. So, I mean, you know, props to Ryan Schwab and his team. If he has one that built this thing, it sounds incredible, but it's like $200 just for a clipper. There's a ton of really great clippers. I think there's like a Sur, a K-Clip. There's a bunch out there that are really good. This is definitely one of the best ones. But yeah, I mean, any of the other clippers will do 2-3 dB of clipping cleanly without any problems. Okay, and now we're moving to the limiters, and again you will see these are just doing a little bit. That's what I want to see. I want this limiter to just be doing a little bit, and the clipper is doing a lot of the heavy lifting on the biggest peaks in the track. So that's it, just for fun. Let's try to compare the one with the third. No, wait a minute, I'm forgetting something. Let me show you now my plugins that I use for MOJO and Analog Vibe, because this was actually a huge discovery for me. Check this out. These are the incredible plugins from Empirical Labs, geniuses in their field, and their EQ and their compressor it sounds so good and vibey and analog. Like, as you can see, I have a ton of gear here in the studio. I rarely use it in this stage. I mostly use it for tracking, and sometimes I do master with it, but I can get so close with this mastering chain and using these plugins for the analog vibe that it's a bit of a toss-up for me what I need to use. Like, these are not cheap, but I can recommend them to you as just sounding incredible. Let me show you. Okay, that's a tough comparison. Wait a minute, let me add a utility here so we can try to do this at unity gain, because otherwise it's going to be like impossible to really tell what's going on here. So I think that was about 4 dB louder. I'm going to quickly assign a key command to both of these so that with a bit of luck now I'll be able to bypass. Yes, exactly. Cool. All right, let's see if I was close with my 4 dB. Pretty close. Can you tell how cool these plugins just like add the vibe, add the MOJO, and bring the sound up front? And as you can see, the boosting and stuff that I'm doing here, it's not that heavy. I'm doing a little cut in the low mids, little boost in the lows, in the deep, little boost in the mids and the highs. No filtering going on here, no finisher, no oversampling, keeping it simple because this is also my composition and performance, live performance template, so I don't want this to crash on me because I'm pushing the CPU or add additional latency. So everything I've shown you today is low latency. I think the whole plugin, the whole template here is like 8 milliseconds latency in to out. So you can use this on stage exactly like this, which has always been my ideas. You go from production, take your laptop, slap it on a stage and be able to play with exactly this setup. No worries, you know exactly what you're gonna get, right? I wanted to show you that I don't actually compress that heavily with this vibe kind of MOJO chain here from Empirical Labs. Check this out. So it's just like peaking around 3 dB. Usually it's actually a little bit less, like 2 or maybe even just 1, but in this case I really like how it's sounding now. So yeah, if you're looking for a set of plugins that will just like bring the analog vibe to your fully digital setup, these things are it. I've compared like anything that's on the market really. I've tried it. This is it. And I've compared them also to the Softube versions of these plugins. They're also good, but these are better. So if you want to check them out, I would highly recommend it. It's the best sounding vibe EQs that I know. One thing I've forgotten to show you, which is actually a really critical part of my production, is the Clariphonic EQ from the amazing Gregory over at KUSH. This thing is insane. Let me show you what it does. Can you tell how it just makes everything sound killer and upfront without sounding EQ'd? So I've learned from experience not to overdo it on this thing. This is roughly the area where I go, and I would not do this on stage, like tweak it to fix something on stage, because it has crashed on me once when I was tweaking it on a stage. So I would just leave this set and work with other EQs if you have to change something on stage. But this thing is magic, the way you can bring stuff up front and just make it really present and like beautifully harmonically rich without it sounding EQ'd. Also on vocals and stuff, it's sick. But just having this thing on your output bus just makes everything sound like super produced. Check it out. And as you can probably tell, a lot of these steps are very subtle, but when you add them all together, you get to this very rich sound, which is what I've also learned over the years. It's better to do little steps in the processing that all add up to something that feels very organic and very vibey than if you're like trying to do everything with just one EQ and one compressor and one limiter. For some reason, I've never gotten that to sound really good, especially not with plugins. So that's it. This has actually turned out to become a pretty heavy-duty video also. It's like a half an hour I can see now in the recording. Let's see how much of this I'm gonna be able to edit out, but I wanted to give you like really the full overview of all the stuff that I do when self-mastering my music and everything I can share with you about mastering your own music. A very important side note that I should mention is, of course, none of this stuff is manageable if you don't know exactly what you're listening to. And the way that I do this is that I either will mix, if it's like the final master, I will mix on Slate VSX with the matching headphones, and I'll use the Mike Dean room and the Howie Weinberg mastering room to monitor through. I know that system inside out, and it just translates perfectly. Like within 2 days of getting it, I was making some really good mixes. That is my final check. However, I also have these AIAIAI wireless headphones, which are super comfortable. And what I've done in order to be able to really know where I'm at from a sound point of view is that I have a preset that I've built in a Sound ID reference, which basically gives me the sound of the Slate VSX into these headphones, so that I don't have to always travel also with them. Let me show you what it looks like. This is the preset. So you have to pick the AIAIAI Studio Wired Average as a basic preset, and then I've tweaked it to match closer to what VSX sounds like. And I can't share this preset with you, but I can give you the frequency and gain ranges. So that's how I have it set up, so that I can get this very close. And yeah, like this, I can know exactly, like this now sounds so close to the VSX that I'm fine also mixing just through these. Okay, that was it for me today. I hope that this video was helpful for you. If you hate mixing on headphones, I can recommend in the sort of, high-end Amphion 115s, which are incredible with some sort of a subwoofer. I can also recommend, if you're like in the low end, so like starting out and maybe not have so much cash for this kind of gear, Beat Bow & Wilkins 601. It's an old hi-fi speaker. It sounds like a studio monitor. You can get them for like $100, $200. They're incredible, highly recommended. But yeah, if you want to just like avoid any kind of guessing, I can wholeheartedly recommend Slate VSX. Not sponsored content. I have no current affiliation with them. I used to work for them ages ago. That system is just sick how it translates. So if you're frustrated that your mixes never sound the way you heard them in the studio, just get yourself a pair of Slate VSX headphones and be done with it. I will put an affiliate link, I guess, in the description. I guess if you want to help out, cool. I think it's like, I get like $50 a quarter or something from Thomann for this stuff. But like, I would appreciate the gesture. But in any case, I really hope that this video was helpful for you. It's going to help you with your mixing and mastering. And yeah, if you ever have any questions about all of this stuff, hit me up on support@rapidflow.shop. Me and the team will do everything we can to help you. Of course, we're super grateful if you buy our products over on rapidflow.shop. And I do offer one-on-one coachings also, which is also over on the web shop. You can get yourself an appointment there. And yeah, we'll chat and I'll see how I can help you progress on your musical journey. All right, I hope you're having a great time in the studio. I wish you much inspiration. Listen to this track a little bit more and I'll see you on the next video. Take it easy. Bye-bye.